Hey guys, it's Hunter. Welcome back to another episode of AskGufish. I'm on a mission to keep this consistency going. Let's just jump straight into your questions. The metal you play is f***ing gay and dated. That's high praise. Why aren't you talking about the Fender Vintera series? That's a good question. Let's do that now. So Fender's been on a bit of a roll lately. Last year or so, they've basically overhauled their entire lineup. They've phased out old lines from both their US and Mexico factories and replaced them with brand new ones. Then of course there's the alternate reality series, like a mix and match of various traditional parts, one of which is the coolest Fender I've ever seen, the 66. It's got a mini jazz body, a humbucker in the bridge, and two telly pickups in the neck and middle positions. Pete Cottrell has one in Daphne Blue, no less. He loves it. I am so jealous. But enough of Pete's annoyingly cool new guitar. The latest Fender introduction is the Vintera series, made out of their Mexico facility, all with MSRPs in or around $1,000. As the name suggests, these are directly inspired by vintage guitars with period correct specs. There's 16 guitar models in the new collection, and we're gonna talk through all of them, starting with the Strats. So we've got the 50s Stratocaster, the 50s Modified, the 60s Stratocaster, the 60s Modified, and finally, the 70s Stratocaster. Alright, so why so many? What are the differences? Well, first the similarities. They all have 25.5-inch scale lengths, 21 frets, and synthetic bone nuts. So the $899 50 Stratocaster comes in 3 different finishes: seafoam green, sonic blue, and white blonde, all with maple necks with gloss urethane finishes and maple fingerboards. Now interestingly, depending on the finish, you'll either get an alder body with green and blue, or an ash body with white. The frets are listed as vintage sized. I don't know what that means. Probably small. The fingerboard radius is 7.25 inches, which is ridiculously round. It's like the anti-Ibanez. The neck has a soft V profile, so I guess it's like a V with a slightly rounded point. Sounds super interesting and very different from most Strats and Strat copies on the market. The pickups are the brand new revoiced 50 Strat pickups, which are supposed to sound accurate to the most sought after pickups Fender made at the time. And then the hardware, both the synchronized 6-point tremolo and the tuning machines are vintage style, so they look and feel correct on this guitar, but have modern reliability and stability. The modified version is $100 more and comes in both 2-color sunburst and the absolutely wonderful Daphne Blue, both with alder bodies. Now with the pure white pickguard and aged white pickup covers, it looks very similar, but judging by the specs, this is gonna feel like a very different monster to play. Starting with the now satin finished neck, this has a modern C profile and a flatter but still relatively round 9.5-inch fingerboard radius with 21 medium jumbo frets. The bridge is a more modern style 2-point synchronized tremolo. For sound, this one has hot 50 Strat pickups, which are supposed to be hotter, obviously, but it also has what Fender is calling an S1 switch. I'm guessing one of the tones is push-pull, and it activates the neck pickup in positions 1 and 2 for even more tonal options beyond what normal Strat wiring allows. So that would be bridge and neck, and all 3 pickups are now additional selections you can make. Moving on to the 60 Stratocaster. For $899, it comes in 3-color sunburst, ice blue metallic, and surf green. Alder bodies, maple necks, and Palfaro fingerboards. Like the non-modified 50 Stratocaster, it has a 7.25-inch radiused fingerboard with 21 vintage-style frets and vintage-style hardware. Unlike the 50s though, this has what Fender's listed as a mid-60s C neck, thinner at the 1st fret and thicker at the 12th. I'm pretty sure most neck shapes are like that to some extent, but I guess this must be more noticeable. Of course, the 60s Strat has revoiced 60s pickups, because, I mean, if it didn't, that wouldn't make much sense. Then the 60s has also gotten the modified treatment. Again, it's $100 more and comes in burgundy mist metallic and Olympic white. Satin finished neck with a modern C profile, 9.5-inch fingerboard radius, 21 medium jumbo frets, hotter 60s pickups, and an S1 switch. You can see a bit of a trend here. Last up for the Strats is the 70s. This one comes in aged natural and mocha with maple fingerboards, and then sienna sunburst with a Palfaro fingerboard, all with ash bodies. You know the drill: 7.25-inch radiused fingerboard, revoiced 70s Strat pickups, and an early 70s C neck profile. Again, they say it's shaped for, quote, period correct playing feel, thinner at the 1st fret, thicker at the 12th, so I guess I'd have to play them back to back to figure out the difference between the 60s and the 70s. Or if you're watching and you know, leave a comment, that would be great. Hardware, again, we've got the vintage style tremolo and tuners, but the machine head housings have F stamps like they did in the 70s. This one also has the massive oversized headstock, which I absolutely love. If all Fenders suddenly came with the oversized headstocks, I would have no complaints whatsoever. The regular one is iconic, but the oversized one is just super cool. Okay, so that's a lot of strats, but there are even more tellies. Again, we've got regular and modified versions of the 50s, but not necessarily all the same differences that you were expecting. For the $8.99 normal 50s telly, we have two colors: Sunburst, Fiesta Red, and my favorite, Sonic Blue, all with alder bodies and maple fingerboards. Vintage style frets and tuning machines. The bridge is also vintage ashtray style with 3 brass barrel saddles, revoiced 50s telly pickups, and an early 50s U neck profile with thick shoulders. Now you might think that the modified version is the same, but with hotter pickups, modern C profile, modern style hardware, and a 9.5-inch radius, but you'd only be about half right. First of all, for $100 more, it comes in butterscotch with an ash body, and then Daphne Blue and Surf Green have alder bodies. Now instead of a modern C, the 50s modified actually has a soft V neck profile, which is an unexpected surprise. And instead of a modern 6-saddle bridge like on my Player Series telly, it's kept the vintage style ashtray with the 3 brass saddles. Finally, instead of just hotter 50s pickups, it actually has a custom shop bridge and a twisted telly neck for a fatter sound. The wiring is also interesting and impressive. It has a 4-way switch to select the bridge, both pickups in parallel, the neck, and both pickups in series, then a push-pull pot to reverse the phase. Then interestingly, there's no regular 60s Telecaster in the Vintera series. There's the $9.99 60s modified and then the $10.49 60s Telecaster Bigsby. We'll talk about the latter first. I'm now realizing that going through each one spec by spec is a massive mistake because it's taking forever and you already have some idea of what's coming. But here we go anyways, it's time to finish this fight. Vintage style frets and tuners, 7.25-inch fingerboard radius, 60s telly pickups, early 60s C-shaped maple neck. This one comes in 2 finishes, 3-color Sunburst with an alder body and white blonde with an ash body, both with Palfaro fingerboards. Now this is the only model in the Vintera series to come with a Bigsby vibrato, which I've always thought looks cool and classy, but maybe felt a little bit clunky. The modified version is what you're expecting by now: modern C profile, medium jumbo frets, 9.5-inch fingerboard radius, hot 60s telly pickups. Like the 50s modified, it keeps the vintage style bridge and picks up the 4-way and S1 switch wiring combination. It comes in Lake Placid Blue and Seafoam Green, both with Palfaro fingerboards. The 70s versions though is where things go a bit nuts. First up is the Thin Line, which is actually a semi-hollow with a single F-hole. I swear, if anybody makes an F-hole joke in the comments. It has an ash body, comes in aged natural, candy apple red, and vintage blonde, all with maple fingerboards with 7.25-inch radii and thin C-shaped necks. It has Fender's revoiced wide-range humbuckers and actually a vintage-style Strat hardtail bridge. Not really a fan of how this one looks, but it's a semi-hollow, so that's neat. Then there's the 70s Telly Custom, which shares a lot of the same specs, namely the thin C neck profile, vintage frets, and a 7.25-inch fingerboard radius. This one has a solid alder body and comes in some pretty sick finishes: black with a maple board, then Fiesta Red and Sonic Blue come with Palfaro. The bridge is actually different. This one has a vintage style telly one, but the 3 saddles are made of steel instead of brass. For pickups, it has a wide range humbucker in the neck and then a vintage style 70s telly single in the bridge. Last for the tellies is the 70s Deluxe. Again, solid alder body and comes in 3 colors: Sunburst, Mocha, and Vintage Blonde. It brings back the Strat hardtail bridge and dual wide range humbuckers, as well as the thin C neck shape and vintage frets. However, unlike the other 2 70s, it's got a 9.5-inch fingerboard radius. Honestly, not so into the finishes for this one, but it does have that freaking oversized headstock. Moving on to Fender's less popular but still iconic shapes, we've got 2 Jazzmasters and 2 Jaguars in the new series. The $9.99 60s Jaguar comes in ice blue metallic and Olympic white, both with matching headstocks. Very clean. Alder bodies, Palfaro fingerboards. Spec-wise, you already know what's coming. 7.25-inch fingerboard radius, vintage style frets and hardware, mid-60s C-shaped neck profile, revoiced 60s Jazzmaster single coil pickups. What's extra cool about the Vintera Jazzmasters is that they have a rhythm lead circuit, which lets you save a tone and volume preset that you can switch to on the fly. The 1099 modified version comes in 3-color Sunburst and Surf Green, unfortunately no matching headstocks though. This one is fairly predictable, modern C profile, 9.5-inch radius with medium jumbo frets, hotter 60s Jazzmaster pickups. It retains the lead rhythm circuit and has more of a modern style tremolo with an Adjust-O-Matic bridge. Now the Jaguars are actually some of the more unique ones out of the entire series, even though they might not look it at first. The 1049 60s Jaguar comes in 3-color Sunburst and Ocean Turquoise with a matching headstock, while the modified version comes in Sonic Blue and Surf Green, all with alder bodies and Palfero fingerboards. Now, unlike the rest of the series, the Jags are actually short scales, only 24 inches compared to the 25.5-inch found on every other Vintera guitar model. It has an additional 22nd fret, which none of the others do as well. The controls are also crazy. They've both got the rhythm lead circuit, but also 3 additional switches below the neck pickup. The 60s Jag has a 7.25-inch fingerboard radius, vintage-style frets, a mid-60s C-shaped neck profile, and a vintage-style tremolo. The 2 pickups are 60s-style Jaguar single coils. The 3 additional sliders on this one can turn each of the pickups on or off individually, and I guess the last one is some sort of tone cut. The modified Jag has a modern C neck, a 9.5-inch radius, and medium jumbo frets, which surprises absolutely no one at this point. The pickups on this one are atomic humbuckers, which can be split using the rotary controls. The 3 sliders on the bottom can kill each pickup individually or both at the same time using the master kill switch. Totally not my style of guitar at all, way too many controls on the front for my taste, but I have to admit that is an impressive amount of functionality to build into one single guitar. Whoops, Feature Hunter here in post. Totally did not see that there was a Vintera 60s Mustang as well. For $899, comes in 3-color Sunburst, Lake Placid Blue, and Seafoam Green, all with alder bodies and Palfero fingerboards. It's also got a 24-inch scale length and a 22nd fret, so what I said before about the Jag being the only one with those specs was not correct. Vintage style frets, hardware, fingerboard radius, tuners. Then it's got 2 offset single 60s Mustang pickups and 2 slider switches that can kill either pickup independently. So another little interesting one. So even though I'm more of a modern player, I'm actually quite interested in the Vintera series now that I've taken a closer look at it. There's some features here that have been naturally phased out over the course of time that I'm actually a big fan of. For example, I love the giant oversized headstocks. I just wish the 2 Vinteras they were on didn't come in like the ugliest 80s furniture colors. Then there's stuff like the soft V neck and the 7.25-inch fingerboard radius that I'd love to try. I think it's cool that there's so many vintage inspired options that you can get for about $1,000 instead of having to head to the custom shop for. It seems like a really well-planned series, the classic counterparts to the more contemporary Player series. The ones I'm particularly into are the 50s Telecaster in Sonic Blue, and the 50s modified in Daphne Blue. I'm like huge into light blue Fender guitars with maple fingerboards right now. It's because of that damn 66. I want that guitar so bad, and Fender doesn't want to send me one. Both these Telecasters seem really nice though. I'd love to do a shootout between the 2. I wonder how they handle drop B. But yeah, what do you think of the Fender Vintera series, and which ones would you like to see a demo of? What a time to be a Fender fan. There are literally so many options. Pull in the top right. Your recordings make this sound like complete garbage. Thanks dude, don't forget to like and subscribe for more quality content. Before we get into the last question, shout out to Andy Bungert and the rest of the awesome patrons for making this content possible. If you want to support what I do as well with the honest reviews and coverage, you can join the Patreon community through the link below and get some awesome bonus perks as well. What about the new Jim Root Jazzmaster? Yeah, so I don't think I've been tagged in an Instagram post this much since the Solar single cuts. Actually, never mind, it's this one. This is the Instagram post I've been tagged the most in. Thanks guys. So for anyone watching this channel that doesn't know who Jim Root is, he's one of the guitarists in Slipknot, and his signature Fender guitars are massively popular. Currently he's got 3 Fender signatures in production, 4 if you count the Squire, but we'll ignore that one for now, not because it's bad, but it just doesn't really fit into this conversation. The Strat and the Jazzmaster are $14.99 each and are made in the USA. Then there's an $11.99 Tele made in Mexico. I've demoed both the Telecaster and the Jazzmaster. The Jazzmaster is still one of my favorite guitars that I've ever had on the channel. Every time I see one on Reverb for less than $1,000, I am so tempted to pull the trigger. Cody Quistad? One of the guitarists from Wage War uses one as his main axe as well. It is so good. By the way, if you're into modern metal, I would recommend checking out Wage War's new singles. I am so hyped for the new album that comes out on the 30th. It's cool, Wage War. I'll send you an invoice for that little plug later. Back to Jim Root's guitars though, the reason that these are so popular for metal players is that spec-wise, they're different to most normal Fenders. They have mahogany bodies that are slightly less rounded on the edges, kind of dinky-like, EMG 60 in the neck, 81 in the bridge with only a single volume knob, bolt-on maple necks and ebony fingerboard, Fender locking tuners, and a nice little subtle carve at the neck joint for easier upper fret access. The MIM Telly has a 12-inch fingerboard radius, while both the American models have a compound 12 to 16 radius. And most importantly, for me, they have the giant oversized headstocks. So Jim Roots just confirmed over Instagram that he's gonna have a new Jazzmaster signature. Like the Telly, this one will be made in Mexico. So presumably it'll stick with the $11.99 price tag, mahogany body, maple neck, ebony fingerboard. There will be a lot of differences though. This one will have block inlays, lumen-lay side markers, white neck binding, a smaller contemporary headstock, and EMG retroactive pickups. We've talked about the retroactive pickups before. They're active, but voiced like classic passive pickups. My first guess was a Hot 70 set with a ceramic bridge and Alnico 5 neck in the new Jazzmaster, but then I noticed hashtag new signature pickups was in the Instagram post. So that could be a new custom voiced Jim Root signature retroactive set, or it could just be a repackaged custom set like how Zakk Wylde set is your standard 8185 in one box. Then again, hashtag breakfast burrito is in the post, so I don't know, maybe I'm looking too into the hashtags. I mean, with this new guitar, I really like the aesthetics. I wish he'd kept the oversized headstock and the pickups were covered, but overall, it's a nice, classy change from his usual, more subtle style. I'm kind of torn on this one. Jim Root's MIM Telly was good, but the Jazzmaster is just a massive step up in feel. It's all about value per dollar, and for me, if you're gonna shell out $1,200 already, which by no means is a small amount, you may as well go the extra $300 for a guitar that literally feels twice as good. I mean, in my opinion. Now, ultimately, we won't get to see one of these up close and personal until Winter NAMM in January. But yeah, what do you think? Are you hyped? Poll in the top right. That'll do it for this week's episode of Ask-A-Fish. If you're enjoying the content, like, subscribe, turn on notifications by hitting the little bell. That way YouTube might actually let you know when I've uploaded a new video. Leave your thoughts and your questions down below. Links to social media, merch, and the Discord server are in the description. As always, thanks so much for watching. You've been awesome, and I'll see you for the next video.